Here, in the heart of the great Canadian North, where the mountains touched the sky and the snow fell like soft whispers, lived a small village. And in this village lived a young First Nations girl named Aina. Aina was special, though she didn't know it yet. While others saw the snow as a silent white blanket, Aina heard its voice. It murmured secrets on the wind, stories carried on each delicate flake. She would sit by her window for hours, her head tilted, listening to the soft, rustling conversations of the falling snow. Her elders would smile kindly. "What do you hear, little one?" They'd ask. "The snow is telling me the pines are thirsty," she might reply. Or, "The river is dreaming of spring." They thought it was just a child's game, the poetry of a young heart. But Aina knew it was real. The whispers were as clear to her as the call of the loon across the lake. She learned the moods of the weather, not from the clouds, but from the happy chatter or the low, mournful sigh of the snow. One winter, the snow fell heavier than anyone could remember. It piled in great, beautiful drifts that sparkled under the pale sun. The village was cozy and warm, the scent of wood smoke hanging in the crisp air. But as the days passed, the whispers Aina heard began to change. The gentle murmurs turned into anxious, hurried sounds, like a crowd of people all trying to speak at once. The snow was restless. It sounded afraid. Aina tried to tell the others. "Something is wrong with the mountain," she said to her father, her brow furrowed with worry. "The snow is crying. It says it's too heavy. It can't hold on." Her father patted her head. "The mountain has stood for 1,000 years. Aina, we are safe here." But the whispers grew louder, more urgent. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were a desperate roar in her ears, a deep, groaning sound that vibrated through the soles of her moccasins. The snow was screaming a warning. One afternoon, the sound became a single, terrifying word that echoed in her mind. "Run!" It was a voice that came not from one flake, but from the entire mountain. Aina's heart pounded in her chest. There was no more time for games, no more time for gentle explanations. This was real. This was now. She burst from her home, her eyes wide with a fear that was not her own, but the mountains. Everyone, to the great rock. She cried, her small voice ringing out with surprising power. "We have to go now. The mountain is falling." People looked up, confused. The sky was clear, the air was still. Why would they leave the warmth of their homes for the shelter of the old? Wind swept Granite Boulder on the far side of the valley. A few of the elders, seeing the pure, unshakable conviction in her eyes, began to stir. Her urgency was contagious. "Listen to the child," one of them called out, and slowly. Then, all at once, the village began to move. Grabbing blankets and pulling their children close, they followed Aina, running through the deep snow toward the safety of the great rock. They had only just gathered behind its massive, ancient form when a sound unlike any other split the air. It was a deafening crack, a rumble that grew into a thunderous, earth-shattering roar. They turned to look back, watched in awe and terror as a colossal wave of white snow ice and rock crashed down the mountainside, bearing the place where their village had stood just moments before. A cloud of snow dust billowed into the sky, and then an eerie silence fell. Where there had been homes, there was now only a vast, white slope. They were safe. All of them. As the dust settled, the villagers turned to Aina, their faces a mixture of shock and gratitude. They looked at her not as a child with a vivid imagination, but as a seer, a protector. They finally understood. The world around them had a voice, and Aina was the one who knew how to listen. From that day forward, when the wind howled or the river rushed or the snow fell in silent blankets, the people of the village would pause. They would quiet their own thoughts and listen, truly listen, for the whispers of the world. They learned from Iona that nature was always speaking, and that the first and most important act of bravery is simply to be quiet enough to hear.